All right, let's do a couple examples from section 4.6. So I'm going to look at this inequality and how do we solve it and write the answer in interval notation. And then I will also be doing this problem right here if you just want to skip forward and check that one out, okay? So let's start here. First of all, I have a fraction with a variable in the denominator, so I have to be really careful because remember, this can never be 0 on the bottom. So I can see real quick here that x can't be 4. So that's one of my key points that I will use to check. Okay, then I think what makes this 0. And remember that if it's a fraction, I think about what makes the numerator 0. Well, I can see if x was 3/2, I would get 0. And if you can't do that mentally, come over here to the side and set it equal to 0 and then solve. You know, put your 3 on the other side and then divide by 2. And here I can see that x could be -7. So these right here are my 3 key points when I look at my number line to figure out what I'm going to use and what I'm not. So let's see, here's 4, 2, 3, 4, and it can't be 4, so I'm going to do like an open point on that. And 3/2, let's see, that's about 1.5, so that's right here. That would be a closed point, okay, because it can equal 0. And then -7 is somewhere over here, who cares? But that's also a closed point because it can equal -7. Now let me just say at this point, if that was strictly greater than, all of these would be open as well, okay? But because it can equal it, I'm closing those points. All right, now, so now I need to check each of my intervals. And honestly, you could do this. You could pick anything here to the left of -7, plug it in, get an actual value. I think the easier thing to do, so let's just try -8, is I'm going to plug that in here and just see if I'm going to get a positive or negative value. If I plug a -8 in here, I don't even care what I get because when I square it, it would be positive. If I plug a -8 in here and add 7, well, I'd still have a negative answer. And when I cube it, it's still going to be negative. Okay, so 4 minus a negative, well, that's 4 plus 8, so that would be positive. So look what I get here. I get 1 negative, so we know my answer would be negative. If this answer is negative, there's no way that it will be greater than 0. So this value, anything over here, is not going to work. Okay, let's try something in between these 2 key points. Pick anything you want, anything. Why not try 0? Because I just would think that would be the easiest thing to try. But pick what you want. Again, I don't care what this is, but when I square it, it will be positive. 0 plus 7, well, that's positive. I cube it, still positive. 4 minus 0, that's still positive. So notice 3 positives is definitely positive. Anything positive will be greater than 0. So this is going to work in here. All of this between those 2 key points will work. Okay, now let's try something in here. Anything you want. So why not 3? Try what you want, but let's try 3. So notice I'm kind of showing some work, which you're going to want to do on your test to kind of let me know. Either plug these values actually into your calculator and get a value, or kind of do what I'm doing to see if it's going to work or not. So let's try 3. I don't care. If I square it, it's positive. 3 here, 3 plus 7, definitely positive. Cube it, even more positive, if that's even possible. 4 minus 3, that's 1, that's positive. So look at there. That's going to be positive, which is going to be greater than 0. So this interval is going to work as well. Interesting. Okay. Now let's try something over here. Anything you want, 5, 10, 100, 4.1, I don't care. I'm just going to go ahead and try 5 because it's pretty close to that value. If I square it, I don't care. If I square it, it's going to be positive. 5 plus 7, positive. 4 minus 5, uh-oh, that's negative. So look what I've got. 1 negative is negative. That's definitely not greater than 0. So this interval does not work. Okay, this point is closed. So notice I've got everything between here and there that's going to work. So my interval notation is going to be bracket -7 because I can use it all the way to 4 parenthesis because I can't. And that's your interval notation on that one. Okay, let's try this other problem just for kicks. No fraction, so that's nice. I don't have to worry about anything that's undefined. So let's just set this equal to 0. So I'm going to move everything over here, which means I'm going to subtract 6x from both sides. Notice 4x minus 6x is -2x. I'm going to move the 8 to the other side. And there we go. Okay, you're going to have to factor this. Now, hopefully you're good at factoring. If not, let me show you a little trick. If this is not a 1, I do what's called the Lizzie method. Do what you want to factor this, but I do it like this. I say, okay, that gives me negative 24. I think of factors of negative 24 that add up to negative 2. So I'm thinking here, what would that be? 6 and 4? And that would have to be a negative 6 with a positive 4. So what I do is I write this number twice, and I put those magic numbers under there. It doesn't matter what order. But does everybody see negative 6 times 4 is negative 24? Negative 6 plus 4 is negative 2, so that's going to work. Sometimes these fractions will simplify. This one doesn't, so that would give me a 3x plus 4 over here. This one does. 3 goes into 6 twice, so I've got x minus 2. So I don't care what method you use to factor this, it needs to be factored so I can figure out what makes it 0. So to find my key points, I'm going to be like, okay, what makes it 0? I would see that 2 makes it 0 right there. And what makes this 0 is a negative 4/3. Again, set this guy equal to 0 and solve if you can't do that mentally. Okay, these are my key points. So here's my little number line. So now look, this cannot equal 0. So I want to make sure I make this an open point. And again, let me just say, had there been an or equal, I would have closed him in. And then negative 4/3, I don't care. It's over here somewhere, and it's got an open point. Okay. Now, you have to try something between and to the left and to the right of every key point. So I'm going to try something over here. Let's say negative 3. Now, honestly, you can plug it in here, see what you get. I still play the positive negative game. So if you plug in negative 3 in here, I get negative 9 plus 4. That's still negative. Negative 9 minus 2. That's negative. And a negative is positive. Well, if it's positive, it's not less than 0. So that's not going to work. All right, let's try something in here. Why not 0? In this case, it's probably easier just to plug 0 in right here, and that gives me negative 8. Negative 8 is less than 0, so I would shade in here. Now, if you want to see how I normally also do it with the signs, if I was going to say, oh, I'm going to try 0. Notice 3 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 4, hey, that's definitely positive. 0 minus 2, that's negative. And a positive and a negative is a negative. If it's negative, it's less than 0. Okay, now try something to the right. How about if we try a positive 3? Well, that'd be 9 plus 4. That's definitely positive. 3 minus 2. That's still positive. A positive and a positive. That's positive. So that's not going to work. So here's my interval. Since those are open, it's going to be negative 4/3 to 2. That's my interval that works right there. Okay.